The awakening of Terra. The stars had always watched humanity with indifference. For centuries, Earth's inhabitants gazed upward, wondering if they were alone. They weren't. The galaxy teemed with life, with civilizations that had mastered faster-than-light travel millennia before humans had learned to harness electricity. But the stars' indifference was calculated. The galactic hegemony, a coalition of the 17 most advanced species, had long ago decided that humanity was too volatile, too unpredictable to join their ranks. Commander Elena Reyes stood on the observation deck of the UES Prometheus, Earth's first true interstellar vessel. At 43, she had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. Behind her, the bridge crew worked in focused silence, monitoring the ship's approach to what appeared to be an abandoned space station orbiting a distant gas giant in the Ta-CD system. "Proximity alert," announced Lieutenant Zhang, his voice steady despite the tension. "We're detecting energy signatures. The station isn't abandoned." Elena nodded. "Maintain approach vector. Open communications on all frequencies." For 3 minutes, they broadcast standard first contact messages. Mathematical sequences, binary representations of human physiology, and simple greetings in multiple Earth languages. The response came not as a transmission, but as a blinding flash of light that knocked out their forward sensors. "Warning shot," Elena said, raising an eyebrow. "Interesting welcome." Chief Science Officer Dr. Nadia Okafor hurried to her side, tablet in hand. "Commander, I'm detecting technology far beyond our understanding. But there's something else, something familiar in the energy signatures." Before Elena could respond, the ship's AI interface, AI, materialized as a holographic projection. "Commander, I've analyzed the station's external architecture. It bears remarkable similarities to artifacts discovered in Antarctica in 2087. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew about the Antarctic discovery. Fragmented technology buried under 2 miles of ice, dating back over 50,000 years. Technology that had accelerated human development by centuries and enabled the very ship they now stood upon. Their precursors, Elena whispered. The precursors. Humanity's name for whoever had left those Antarctic artifacts had vanished long ago, leaving only fragments of their advanced technology. For decades, scientists had speculated about their disappearance, but one theory predominated. They had been wiped out by something, or someone, in the galaxy. A new transmission cut through their communications, this time in perfect English. "Human vessel, you have entered restricted space. Your presence is unauthorized. The technology you possess is stolen. Surrender your vessel and prepare to be boarded." Elena exchanged glances with her executive officer, Commander Marcus Jackson. "Stolen. That's rich coming from grave robbers." "They can't know about Antarctica," Marcus replied. "That was Earth's most classified secret until 3 years ago." "Unless they've been watching us all along," Elena said. "Area. Initiate Protocol Janus. Full spectrum analysis of that station." Aria's holographic form flickered as she processed the command. "Commander, the station appears to be a monitoring outpost. I detect transmission signals directed toward multiple points outside our solar system. They've been observing Earth." Elena's jaw tightened. "For how long?" "Based on signal degradation patterns, approximately 12,000 years. The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. Throughout human history, through the rise and fall of civilizations, through wars and technological developments, they have been watched, studied, judged. "Commander," Zhang interrupted, "they're powering up weapons systems." Elena straightened her uniform. "Battle stations. Deploy quantum shields." The quantum shield technology, reverse-engineered from the Antarctic artifacts, had never been tested in actual combat. Earth's military strategists had theorized it would hold against known weapons, but these weren't known weapons. The station fired, a lance of energy that would have vaporized any conventional vessel. Instead, the quantum shields absorbed the blast, converting its energy and feeding it back into the Prometheus's systems. Shields holding at 94%, reported Zhang, unable to hide his surprise. Power reserves increasing by 27%. A small smile played at the corner of Alina's mouth. It seems our ancestors left us more than just technology. They left us a means to defend ourselves. She turned to her communications officer. Open a channel. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a humanoid figure with pale blue skin, large multifaceted eyes, and no visible mouth. It seemed startled by the direct communication. This is Commander Elena Reyes of the United Earth ship Prometheus. Your attack on our vessel constitutes an act of war against humanity. We came in peace, but we will defend ourselves. The alien's eyes shifted in what Elena interpreted as surprise or possibly fear. It communicated through a translation device attached to what passed for its neck. Your species was quarantined for a reason, human. You possess genetic memory of the HFY, what you call precursors. Their technology is forbidden. Their legacy is death. Elena processed this information carefully. Genetic memory. That would explain why human scientists had been able to understand the Antarctic technology at all. The HFY were not just visitors to Earth, Elena realized aloud. They were our ancestors. They interbred with early humans. The aliens' posture change, a defensive stance. The HFY defied the natural order. They uplifted primitive species across the galaxy, integrating their genetic code where they found potential. Your kind was their final experiment before the Great Purge. The Great Purge, Elena prompted. The necessary cleansing. The HFY threatened the balance of power. Their technology could not be allowed to spread. Most of their experiments were sterilized. Yours was deemed too primitive to pose a threat. A miscalculation. Elena felt a cold rage building inside her. You wiped out an entire civilization, and then watched us for 12,000 years, waiting to see if we become a threat. Protocol dictated observation until extinction or advancement. Your rapid development in the past century triggered intervention protocols. Elena looked around at her crew, the best minds Earth had to offer, descendants of countless generations who had survived and thrived despite war, disease, and self-inflicted near-extinction events. Humanity had clawed its way to the stars through sheer determination and ingenuity. You should have killed us when you had the chance, Elena said quietly. The alien seemed to consider this. That assessment is accurate. The Hegemony Council will be informed. Your quarantine status has been upgraded to immediate containment. Your solar system will be isolated until proper extermination protocols can be implemented. The transmission cut off abruptly. They're charging weapons again, Zhang reported. Elena's decision was immediate. Target their communication array. Use the quantum torpedoes. Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice. Elena, those are prototype weapons. We don't know what they'll do. That's what I'm counting on, she replied. Fire. The quantum torpedoes, another technology derived from the Antarctic cache, streaked toward the station. Instead of exploding on impact, they created a localized distortion in space-time, effectively folding a portion of the station into itself. The communication array imploded, taking a third of the station with it. Alarms blared across the Prometheus as unknown energy signatures appeared on their sensors. Multiple contacts, Zhang shouted. 7. No. 12 vessels approaching at FTL speeds. Estimated arrival time. 17 minutes. Elena turned to her crew, determination etched on her face. We've just made first contact with a hostile galaxy that's been waiting for an excuse to wipe us out. Set course for Earth, maximum speed. We need to warn everyone. As the Prometheus accelerated away from the damaged station, Elena stared at the stars that had watched humanity for so long. Their indifference had been a lie. Their attention had been the prelude to extinction. But humanity had survived extinction-level events before. They had endured ice ages, plagues, world wars, and their own self-destructive tendencies. Now they faced a galaxy that wanted them dead for the crime of existence, for the crime of being descended from a civilization that had dared to change the status quo. Araya, Elena said, compile everything we've learned about the hegemony and the Exarcheth. When we reach Earth, I want every scientific and military mind working on this. The AI nodded, already processing. Commander, based on the aliens' reaction to our quantum shields and weapons, I believe the Antarctic cache contains more than we've discovered. The Exarcheth may have left us other gifts, contingencies in case their enemies ever found us. Elena smiled grimly. Then let's make sure we find them first. The galaxy wanted us extinct. Instead, they're about to meet humanity at its most dangerous, with its back against the wall. As the Prometheus raced toward Earth, carrying news of an imminent existential threat, Elena made a silent promise to her species. Humanity would not go quietly into the night. They would not vanish without a fight. They would make the stars remember why the Exarcheth had chosen them. The final ultimatum. 5 years after the Tau City encounter, Earth was unrecognizable. Cities had been rebuilt with Exarcheth-inspired architecture. Massive structures that doubled as planetary defense systems. The skies teemed with orbital platforms and shipyards constructing vessels that would have been theoretical impossibilities half a decade earlier. Humanity had united under the existential threat, pooling resources and knowledge in a desperate race against extinction. Admiral Elena Rice, promoted after the Prometheus incident, stood before the United Earth Defense Council in the subterranean chambers beneath what had once been Geneva. Her uniform bore the scars of 3 major engagements with hegemony forces. Each encounter had been bloodier than the last, but each time, humanity had prevailed, albeit narrowly. The Antarctic repository is now fully accessible, Elena announced, her voice echoing in the chamber. Dr. Okafor's team has unlocked the final encryption layer. The counselors, 12 representatives from Earth's former nations, leaned forward in anticipation. For 5 years, teams of scientists had worked around the clock to decipher the repository's secrets, finding weapons, shields, and propulsion systems beyond human comprehension. But the innermost chamber had remained sealed, responding to no known stimulus. Until 2 days ago. What did they find? Asked Councillor Mbeki, his weathered face showing the strain of leading South Africa through 3 hegemony bombing campaigns. Elena nodded to Dr. Nadia Okafor, who had become Earth's foremost expert on Exarcheth technology. The scientist stepped forward, no longer the reserve academic from the Prometheus mission. War had hardened her, as it had hardened them all. The Exarcheth left us a message, Nadia began, activating a holographic display in the center of the chamber. And a choice. The hologram showed a humanoid figure, tall, slender, with features that seemed almost familiar, like humanity's distant reflection in an alien mirror. This is a Exarcheth, Nadia explained. The message was encoded in a genetic sequence that could only be activated by a specific combination of human DNA markers, markers that appear in less than 1% of our population. Elena's DNA, Councillor Takahashi of the Pacific Alliance interjected. Nadia nodded. The Exarcheth embedded fail-safes in their technology. They didn't just leave it for anyone to find. They left it specifically for their descendants, for those who carried enough of their genetic code to be recognized by their systems. The holographic Exarcheth began to speak, its voice translated through Araya's advanced linguistic algorithms. If this message has been activated, then our fears were justified. She nodded to the AI, whose holographic form materialized beside the Exarcheth image. The Nexus is not merely a technological advantage, Araya explained. It fundamentally alters the balance of power in the galaxy. The Exarcheth designed it as a last resort, a means to ensure their legacy would survive even if they did not. Once activated, it creates a quantum entanglement effect that cannot be undone. The hegemony will have no choice but to surrender or face total technological collapse. Sounds like exactly what we need, Councillor Mbeki remarked. Elena shook her head. It's not that simple. The warning indicates that activating the Nexus would make humanity the dominant power in the galaxy overnight. We would effectively inherit the Exarcheth's position, with all the responsibility that entails. And the hegemony would become what? Our subjects. Asked Counselor Takahashi, concern evident in her voice. Not subjects, Elena corrected, but they would be at our mercy. Their ships, weapons, even their planetary defense systems would be linked to the Nexus. We could shut them down with a thought. The implications hung heavy in the air. After 5 years of desperate defense, of watching Earth's cities burn and millions die, humanity suddenly faced the prospect of absolute power over their tormentors. The next hegemony assault fleet will reach our outer defense perimeter in 72 hours, Admiral Jackson reminded them. Intelligence suggests this is their largest force yet, nearly 3,000 vessels. Even with our advancements, we cannot guarantee victory. Elena looked each counselor in the eye. The Exarcheth left us this choice because they trusted us to make it wisely. They saw in humanity not just genetic compatibility, but moral potential. They believed we could succeed where they failed, that we could challenge the hegemony's stagnation without becoming conquerors ourselves. Counselor Chen frowned. You sound like you're arguing against using our greatest advantage. I'm arguing for understanding the full weight of this decision. Elena replied. Once we activate the Nexus, there's no going back. We will have the power to subjugate the hegemony, or even wipe them out entirely. The question isn't just whether we should use this power to save ourselves, but what we'll do with it afterward. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some counselors advocated immediate activation, citing the billions of human lives at stake. Others urged caution, warning of the corrupting nature of absolute power. After hours of discussion, they reached an impasse. Finally, Counselor Mbiki raised his hand for silence. Admiral Reyes, he said softly, you discovered the Antarctic repository. You made first contact. Your DNA unlocked this message. What do you recommend? Elena felt the weight of 17 billion lives on her shoulders. 5 years of war had taught her the cost of hesitation and the price of unchecked aggression. Activate the Nexus, she said finally, but not as a weapon of conquest. We use it to force a ceasefire, then diplomatic recognition. We demand our rightful place in the galaxy, but we do not become what we fought against. 3 days later, as the hegemony fleet entered the Sol system, Elena stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, Earth's most advanced warship. Beside her, Dr. Okafor monitored the Nexus activation sequence. Ready, Admiral, Nadia reported. Elena looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Armada. Thousands of ships intent on humanity's extinction. Send the message first. The communication was brief. To the Galactic Hegemony Council, this is Admiral Elena Reyes of United Earth. We have discovered our heritage as descendants of the Exarcheth. We have unlocked their final gift. You have 60 seconds to order your fleet to stand down and open diplomatic channels, or we will activate the Nexus and end this war on our terms. This is humanity's first, last, and only warning. For 47 tense seconds, there was no response. Then, a familiar blue-skinned figure appeared on the view screen. Older now, bearing insignia that marked it as a high-ranking hegemony official. You bluff, it said simply. The Nexus is theoretical. The Exarcheth never completed it before their extinction. Elena smiled coldly. We completed it for them. 10 seconds remaining. Your species cannot be trusted with such power, the alien hissed. You are impulsive, emotional, unpredictable. 3 seconds, Elena counted. 2, 1. She nodded to Nadia, who pressed her palm against the activation interface, a simple crystal that had responded only to her touch. Throughout the ship, throughout Earth's defense fleet, throughout every human outpost and settlement, a wave of energy pulsed outward. It was invisible to the naked eye, but felt by every human as a momentary connection to something vast and ancient. The effect on the hegemony fleet was immediate and dramatic. Ships began powering down, weapons systems failing, life support struggling to maintain baseline functions. The Nexus has synchronized with all Xarketh-derived technology, Araya reported. Hegemony systems are compromised at a fundamental level. They retain minimal control of life support and basic navigation, but offensive capabilities are neutralized. The alien commander stared in disbelief. "What have you done?" "Exactly what we promised," Elena replied. "Now shall we discuss terms? Our conditions are simple. Recognition of Earth as a sovereign power, reparations for 5 years of unprovoked war, and humanity's rightful seat on the Hegemony Council." "The Council will never agree to." Elena cut the alien off with a gesture. "Perhaps I wasn't clear. This isn't a negotiation. It's an ultimatum. The Nexus gives us control over every piece of advanced technology in hegemony space. We can shut down your worlds with a thought. You waged a war of extinction against us for the crime of existing. We're offering you peace despite that fact." The alien's multifaceted eyes narrowed. "And if we refuse?" Elena's expression remained impassive. "Then the galaxy will learn what humanity does to existential threats. You called us unpredictable and dangerous. Push us, and we'll show you just how right you were." 3 months later, Elena stood in the Great Hall of the Hegemony Council on Nexus Prime, the renamed Hegemony Capital World. Representatives of 18 species now sat in the circular chamber, the human delegation having taken its place among the oldest civilizations in known space. The Nexus had changed everything. With control over the technological foundation of galactic civilization, humanity had forced a peace that many in the hegemony still resented. But as Elena addressed the council for the first time, she understood what the Xarketh had seen in her species. "For 12,000 years, you watched us," she began. "You saw us fight wars over resources, ideology, and territory. You saw us nearly destroy ourselves multiple times. You judged us dangerous and unpredictable. You weren't wrong." Murmurs rippled through the alien delegates. "But you failed to see what the Xarketh saw. Our capacity to learn from our mistakes, to grow, to change. Humanity doesn't merely survive. We adapt. We could use the Nexus to rule the galaxy as conquerors, but that's not our path." Elena activated a holographic display showing the new treaty, the Covenant of Worlds. "This agreement limits our control over the Nexus. It establishes checks and balances, shared governance, and technological exchange. Not because we fear your reprisal, but because we refuse to become the very thing we fought against." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity, with godlike power at its fingertips, was voluntarily establishing constraints on its own authority. "Consider this humanity's final warning to the galaxy," Elena concluded. "Not a threat of destruction, but a promise of transformation. The age of stagnation is over. The age of exploration and exchange begins today. You can resist and fade into obsolescence, or join us and reach heights that Xarketh themselves only dreamed of. The choice, as it always has been, is yours." As Elena stepped back from the podium, she caught the eye of the blue-skinned alien who had once threatened humanity with extinction. For the first time, she saw something beyond fear or hatred in those multifaceted eyes. It might have been respect. It might even have been hope. The galaxy had received humanity's warning. Now it would discover whether the children of Earth and the Xarketh would be better guardians of the future than those who had come before.